Every week now since the beginning of the year, over 1,700 videos are uploaded in the alternative media, on the topic of flat earthism. Every month, over 4,200. Since January of this year, over 20,000 videos have been uploaded on the subject. As if a switch was turned on, flat earth psychosis began to commence in a wave beginning in January, as the statistics empirically show. At this rate, by the end of the year, more videos will have been uploaded on this subject than on any other in alternative media, and that's not by mistake. This is part of the plan by the bad guys behind this bullshit movement. The two flat earth societies behind this topic have memberships that are less than 1,000 members. So it's not difficult to figure out that there are organizations behind this crap, helping to push what has become the biggest psyop in alternative media in recent memory. Well-known established members of the alternative community have recently jumped on the flat earth bandwagon, revealing to the alternative community they have always been COINTELPRO shills, working for the NWO. All the evidence suggests this is a highly organized and planned bombardment of the alternative media community to dilute it, distract it, and make those a part of it look like fools by association. Flat Earth fucktardery is not some new enigma. It's been around for a long time, appearing every couple of decades or so in a wave. To promote the agenda, recruit adherents, and to keep the lie alive. In order to understand what you are being confronted with, we must examine the history and the roots of this mental aberration. We must forensically examine the nucleus of this social nuisance, at its core and source. At the root of flat earthism is Bible theism. And this is the reason why flat earthers reject all evidence that contradicts their bullshit. 99% of flat earthers are Bible theists, believing the psychosis is found in Bible script. Not just any type of Bible theism, for you will find that this bullshit begins and originates in Catholic, papal, dogma. The flat earth leaders and talking heads utilize what is no less than the construct invented by the Nazi Joseph Goebbels, who created the form of modern propaganda utilized by the bad guys today. If you tell a lie enough times, the masses will begin to believe it. Peer consensus, and the power of mass suggestion, formulates how flat earth ideology is seeded and grown amongst theists. The utilization of reverse psychology is a tool that has been used in flat earth propaganda. This is seen no more than in the flat earthers' explanation of recorded history in regards to their psychosis. Their claim is that the world had believed in a flat earth up until the last 500 years. Since then, the bad guys designated as the Freemasons, and in particular, NASA, are the origin of the belief in a spherical, round, earth. This of course, is utter bullshit. The belief in a round spherical earth is over 3,000 years old. The universal belief in a round earth is over 2,600 years, since the time of Plato. This remained until the 1st century AD, and the beginnings of the New Testament, Christian Church. It's within the first couple of centuries of the new era, that popes, monks, and members of the universal church clergy began to promulgate and enforce flat earth fucktardism en masse. It was during the Middle Ages that the term plagiarism was created to describe the psychological phobia of falling over the edge of a flat earth. This fact alone debunks the idea that Catholic geocentricity has no relationship to flat earth dogma, for in reality they are both one and the same in ideology. Using reverse psychology, flat earthers demonize victims of the Catholic Inquisition during the Middle Ages, claiming the victims are the bad guys with their crime being science. Rabid fundamental theists have been programmed by their leaders and bullshit orthodoxy to reject and anathematize science. Thus victims of Catholic persecution such as Kepler, Galileo, Bruno, and Copernicus are demonized and made out to be the bad guys, whilst the real enemy, the papacy of the day, is exonerated through non-mention. After all, theists stick by and protect their fellow theotards, even if they are murderers and criminals, because the Book of Babel tells them to do so. A favorite target of flat earth fucktards is Isaac Newton, who pioneered the theory of gravity, claiming Sir Isaac was a bad guy because he was a member of a secret society, namely being a fellow of Cambridge, a common and non-secret status for anyone who has been the head of a department there. Yet they ignore the fact that Isaac Newton was himself persecuted by the Catholic Church. Isaac began as a highly religious and devout Catholic Christian, but he deconverted from the religion after years of intense study into its dogma, and the facts he uncovered regarding the fabrication of the New Testament. This automatically made him an enemy of the papacy. He wrote over 60,000 words during his lifetime condemning doctrines such as the Trinity, and wholesale manipulations of New Testament script by Catholic scribes. Many of these writings were not published and released until after Newton's death, because of Isaac's position at Cambridge, and because of the Catholic Inquisition. Men such as Galileo, who rebelled against the egocentric dogmas of the Catholic Church, was sentenced to life imprisonment, but commuted to house arrest for the rest of his life. Other men such as Giordano Bruno were not as lucky. Bruno was sentenced to death by the Catholic Church for his rebellion against Catholic geocentric dogma. Bruno was burned at the stake in 1600, in a Roman town square. The Catholic clergy who overlooked his execution on behalf of the papacy, deemed it merciful for Bruno by placing a bag over his head full of gunpowder, before they lit the fire. But before they had done this, they had taken a spike and a hammer, and nailed Bruno's tongue to his jaw, to keep him silent. His crime? He claimed Copernicus's cosmological model correct. Papal persecution against opponents of Catholic theist geocentricity continued up to at least the 18th century. Because of the advent of the Reformation and beginning of the Protestant movement, the Inquisition was not able to be used any longer by the papacy to enforce their madness, and more subtle and secretive ways of enforcing Catholic geocentricity had to be utilized. The corporate organization of Universal Freemasonry, and the Jesuit arm of the Catholic Church, became the next weapon of choice by the papacy to enforce their evil bullshit theotardism of geocentric psychosis, through propaganda by secret society. The Freemason flat earth cosmology secreted by high-level Masons, was a perfect marriage with the Catholic geocentric model, creating a powerful propaganda tool for the Jesuits to infiltrate intellectual and theistic circles globally. Modern flat earthers trace the origin of their cult back to the 1800s, to a shady fellow by the name of Samuel Burley Robotham, an eccentric and peculiar character who was a staunch Bible theist, who dabbled in spiritism, with strange religious beliefs, and abhorrent political views. Samuel Burley was a Zionist, a socialist, and the historical record indicates he was also a charlatan and sexual criminal. He was an adherent and disciple of Robert Owen, the infamous socialist who is credited as being one of the earliest progenitors of modern communist ideology. Robert Owen's religious belief was Spiritism, who was a Freemason, and who believed he received his marching orders from dead Masonic American presidents such as George Washington and Thomas Jefferson through mediums. Samuel Burley's story begins when he appears in the fens of England, and attempts to establish a socialist Owenite commune there. Based on the socialist utopian model of Robert Owen, Samuel Burley's endeavor reaches an early failure, when he is accused of sexually taking advantage of numerous female members of his commune, bringing the ire and wrath of numerous husbands wanting to not only prosecute, but also kill Samuel Burley. He fled into hiding near what is called the Bedford Level. It was here the shady Samuel Burley performed healings using concoctions of his own design, gave readings to the locals, and practiced his craft by which he would become infamous for. After some time, Samuel Burley had gained enough verbose skill to attempt to lecture in Blackburn, to ply his newly crafted flat earth dogma. Failure of this endeavor led Samuel to flee the lecture in embarrassment, when he couldn't explain why the hulls of ships disappeared out at sea. It was at this time that Samuel Burley began to use what was a common epithet for secret society members of the era, a pseudo-name. Going by the name of Parallax, Samuel continued to practice his craft by filling local lecture halls in towns and villages, charging a sixpence per person. He was finally pinned down to a challenge in 1864 in Plymouth, when allegations began to circulate he would not agree to a test. Appearing at Plymouth Hoe at an appointed time, and witnessed by a leading writer in astronomy, he proceeded to a beach where his opponents claimed only the lantern of the Eddystone Lighthouse 14 miles away would be visible. The test concluded that only half the lantern was visible, yet Samuel Burley claimed his opponents were indeed wrong, and that the Earth was indeed flat. In 1881, Samuel wrote what would become the Bible to most modern flat Earth morons, called Zetetic Astronomy, Earth Not a Globe. The gibberish contents of the work employing a method devoid of any real science, that discards the scientific method itself for what he called the Zetetic method, which employs nothing but circular reason. Samuel Burley would die some 3 years later in 1884. His death certificate reveals the title and knighthood of Sir Samuel Burley Robotham, and his gravestone is emblazoned with Masonic symbolism, being a Freemason. During the 1890s, a female member of the Royal British aristocracy, a woman married to the famous explorer, Sir Walter de Soddington Blunt, restoked the fire of Samuel Burley's flat earth Masonic bullshit. Lady Elizabeth Ann Mould Blunt, a highly religious Bible literalist and member of the Church of England, and an adherent to Samuel Burley's flat earth mumbo-jumbo, established a society through the aid of her husband's blue blood connections to the royal crown, and relationship with the Jesuits within the Church of England. Called the Universal Zetetic Society, its purpose was to carry the mantle of the demented vision of Samuel Burley, to propagate the knowledge regarding natural cosmology in confirmation with the Bible, using the Zetetic method. Like her predecessor before her, Lady Blunt held a secret society pseudonym called Zetio. The name of her society she established is Latin, and is properly addressed as the Catholic Zeteticus Societas. Her husband, Sir Walter de Soddington, was a high-level Freemason, knighted into the Order of the Ninth Baronet. His wife Zetio, or rather Lady Blunt, is addressed in a weekly periodical called The Oracle during the beginning of the 19th century, as the Lady Freemason. The Catholic Zeteticus Societas was one of many ventures of Lady Blunt. She established multiple charities for various special interest groups of her day, with charities being a primary occupation of Freemasonry. With the advent of the 18th century, and the laws in England forcing all Freemasons to be registered, Freemasonry spread its talons beyond the lodge, and into the churches. The Mormons and the Jehovah's Witnesses being two of many Christian and otherwise theist-based religions, established by the cult of the compass and square. According to the anti-Masonic writer Richard Carlile in 1825, Zetetic societies were formed by the Freemasons into debating clubs, to engage in public discourse and to expand Masonic propaganda. Around the time of the writing of Samuel Rowbotham's book Zetetic Astronomy, a Jesuit missionary out of the Church of England, a faith healer and Zionist, John Alexander Dowie, brought the Masonic flat earth agenda to the shores of America. Becoming a Freemason in 1875, he founded Zion City in Illinois, and established the Christian Catholic Apostolic Church. John Dowie is regarded as the forerunner of Pentecostalism in America. Beginning in 1893 at the World's Fair, Dowie began to stage elaborate divine healings, being accused of using plants from the audience, and other dubious means. Dowie began to claim publicly in 1901, that he was the messenger of God, Elijah the Restorer. He spoke out against modern medicine, and practiced what he called divine healing. By 1904, Dowie had brought Zion Bank to ruins, taking all the residents' savings within it. Investigators found $3.5 million unaccounted for. For years, he had lived lavishly from the holdings within Zion Bank, being called in on federal warrant to account for his crimes. He was found guilty and his reign over Zion City was stripped, and was publicly shamed in the Zion papers, and forced to go on an allowance by the new leadership. In 1906, his wife began to claim her husband was promoting polygamy. In 1907, John Alexander Dowie dies from a second stroke, leaving a legacy of fraud, embezzlement, and charlatanism. Zionist Christian churches branched off Dowie's Catholic Apostolic Church in Zion City, even as far away as South Africa. To take up where Dowie left off, entered the Zionist Jesuit elder of Dowie's congregation, Wilbur Glenn Valiver. Born into a Masonic family, his father 32nd degree, Valiver restructured Zion City, turning the once Zion Bank scheme into the Zion Industries scheme, diversifying and making it a corporation. The city seal of Zion bore the Jesuit Masonic cross and crown. Voliva's police force were called the Praetorian Guard, who bore arm patches bearing the motto, "Patience," and carried a Bible and a club. Praetorian Guard was a name for the Nazi SS during World War II. All those entering the city were warned on billboards around the perimeter that Zion City was no place for those who did not believe in a flat earth. Curfew was at 10, no smoking, no drinking, no eating pork, no whistling, no modern medicine. Zion's new venture allowed the Catholic Apostolic Church to expand globally, with Voliva becoming the very first ever radio evangelist, having the most powerful station in the world, broadcasting to as far away as Australia. Like his predecessor before him, Voliva had a lavish lifestyle, having amassed a personal fortune of $5 million through Zion Industries by 1927. Residents and church members were appalled. In 1935, Zion Industries went bankrupt. Voliva was stripped of his reins and publicly confessed of embezzlement. The new leadership under the independents forced Voliva to place a bumper sticker bearing a globe on his vehicle. In 1937, an employee set on fire the huge Shiloh Tabernacle of the Catholic Apostolic Church. Voliva went into personal bankruptcy, and in 1942 developed terminal cancer and died shortly thereafter. Flat Earthism went into hibernation, leaving a pocket full of adherents. Back over in Britain, it would be revived through the same powers that established the original Catholic Zeteticus societies. Samuel Shenton, a member and fellow Freemason of the Royal Astronomical Society and the Royal Geographical Society respectively, re-established the Universal Zetetic Society, calling it the International Flat Earth Research Society in 1956, commonly called the Flat Earth Society. Shenton, a sign writer by trade, generated some publicity and gave lectures, acquiring a couple dozen members. Having an even more bizarre cosmology, borrowing heavily on ancient mythos and Bible literalism, the fundamental Bible theist Shenton borrowed heavily on his predecessors before him for his ideas. When John Glenn orbited the world in 1962, he was sent a letter from the IFERS with a membership and the message, "Okay, wise guy." Shenton continued to give lectures and gained 100 members. In 1963 he suffered a couple of strokes, and by 1968, his health had deteriorated greatly. Just before his death in 1971, he determined to turn over the society to a charismatic and shady character, who lived in the desert near Redwoods Air Force Base in California. Flat Earth fuckdardism returns back to American soil. Charles Kenneth Johnson, an eccentric and reclusive individual, decided to move away from the cities of California, where he worked as an airplane mechanic, and into the desert near Redwoods Air Force Base. The flatness of the desert and the sunsets at dusk were necessary, according to Johnson, for his further studies of zetetic astronomy, and to confirm the findings of predecessors past, such as Wilbur Voliva, whom Johnson stated proved to him the world was flat. Johnson was not shy of the limelight, and began to appear on numerous TV and radio talk shows all over America, as well as giving lectures in circuits. In the 70s, he appeared in a commercial for Dreyer's ice cream. According to the biographer, Christine Hapgood, Johnson was a regular lecturer for the Elks, Kiwanis, and the Rotary Clubs, all Freemasonic societies in which you must be a member to give lectures at. In brochures put out by Johnson's IFERS in the 80s, The public was told the society had absorbed the Catholic Zeteticus societies going back to the 1800s. Johnson boasts within it that its members are the elite, a society existing for at least 6,000 years. Yearly membership was $100. Members had to sign an oath at the bottom, declaring one's religious status and affiliations, as well to pledge not to harm or defame the society. This is no different than oaths taken within any Masonic lodge. Johnson's wife Marjorie and himself, both extremely religious and staunch Bible literalists, spent years living out of his trailer home near Lancaster, distributing maps, newsletters, flyers, and other promotional materials to anyone who asked, of course for a charge including paid postage. He stated to a local reporter after the shuttle disaster, "You cannot orbit the Earth. The shuttle is a joke, a very ludicrous joke." He claimed the Apollo missions were a hoax, and that Moses was a flat earther, with the Flat Earth Society beginning in 1492 BC when Moses led the Israelites out of Egypt. By the 90s, Johnson had accumulated a membership of over 3,500. In 1995, his wife Marjorie in ill health and a semi-invalid, their home caught on fire destroying everything, not before Johnson pulled his wife to safety. She never recovered and died a year later in 1996. Former NCSE President Bob Shadwald used to stress that Charlie was on the level, quote-unquote. After 30 years as president of the IFERS, Charles K. Johnson dies in March 2001 at age 76. The IFERS membership dropped to below 300. In 2004, Daniel Shenton resurrects the Flat Earth Society, based around an online web discussion forum, which leads to an official relaunch of the society in 2009. The first member to join was musician Thomas Dolby in 2001, 3 years before Shenton's web discussion forum began. As of July 14, 2014, there are 500 members of the Flat Earth Society. In 2013, part of the membership broke away to form a new web-based forum and group. In 2015, Eric Dubé, listed as a professional conspiracy theorist online, starts online discussion forum and Flat Earth campaign leading to 600% increase in the topic's persistency on search engines. Called the International Flat Earth Research Society, or as you guessed it, the IFERS, Eric Dubé, all of 32 years of age, comes out as the president in the resurrection of a 200-year-old society that began with Freemasons. Other ventures of Dubé involve his occupation as an online psychic, tarot reader, expert in the Kabbalah and Kundalini Yoga, and astrological readings, at $1.69 a minute via email, for Casimbo Online Psychic Services. In early 2013, a professional actor and artist appears on the scene, claiming to be a NASA whistleblower who worked in covert operations for the organization, and getting paid for it. Matthew Leonard Boylan, commonly called Matt Boylan, a professional comedy club comedian, and Jesuit-educated grad of St. Xavier University with 2 degrees including political science, begins his ludicrous claims on his YouTube channel, called the NASA Channel. A fraternal apprentice, and member of ACTRA, Matt Boylan has established a relationship with the president of the IFERS, Eric Dubé, since November, at the beginning of this PSYOP that has persisted for the last 8 months. Other agent provocateurs of note include Mark Sargent, a member of the FES, Veganism, another member of the FES, and supposed ex-Catholic J. Henning Teologia, a King James-only Bible-thumping flat earth peddler, who claims satellites are a hoax, the Antichrist is here, the earth is flat, and the ball, abomination. Stars are souls, who claims planets are not real, space does not exist, heaven is a dome, death does not exist, galaxies do not exist, and the earth is flat, on the square and the level. The Catholic, immortal souls, regurgitating the same flat earth Jesuit Masonic propaganda. Zetetic flat earth, plain truth, the Morgile, quasi-luminous, Yoda's conspiracy channel, Rob Skiba, Dave Johnson, Russian vids, Sleep with One Eye Open, Crow 777, and on in a tidal wave, all over alternative media at once, all at the same time starting at the beginning of the year. This is a coordinated and highly organized psyop that has established a fifth column within the alternative media movement. The very message flat earthers sell you tells you all you need to know about the con. The Masons are running a Truman Show, RCGI NASA-generated hologram convincing you the world is round, when they know the secret of the Mason bad guys is that it is indeed flat. A very simple con game in dialecticism, to get you to swallow the very Kool-Aid the flat earthers claims is of evil bad guys running the round earth matrix, namely the pesky Masons. It's a simple thesis, antithesis, synthesis, Masonic ordo ab ko, dialectic. It's good cop, bad cop. Claiming the Masons the bad guys behind the curtain, the entire flat earth movement history is infested with Freemasons and Jesuits. It's steeped in papal supremacy and the Inquisition, the Jesuits, socialism, Zionism, the British Crown, and Freemasonry. Its entire history and origin is of and from the bad guys, the Jesuits and Freemasons, and yet flat earther propagandists reverse the roles in atypical reverse psychology fashion, through mental suggestion, in their propaganda. After all, if you are the bad guys, you're going to point at someone else as being the bad guys to keep your cover. Flat Earth bullshit is 100% Jesuit Masonic. It's rooted in fundamental theotardism, and is powered and propelled by theists of the Catholic Zeteticus Societas persuasion. It's a mental abnormality, based in another mental aberration, relative biblical interpretive psychosis. Platyigism is a relative perceptual phobia and abnormality of cognitive awareness that is induced through carefully contrived suggestive implants through propaganda. It's a psychological war emanating from the bad guys, whose easiest victims are Bible theists. It reads 100% fecal matter detection on the bullshit meter. Beware the flat earthers, they have been swallowed whole, and now work for the bad guys pushing Jesuit, Masonic, fucktardery, becoming foot soldiers for the new world.